Hey everyone, Catch 'em All Collectibles here with a spreadsheet video. Figured I'd start here showing the spreadsheet just to tease you a little bit. I know I'm a big fan of spreadsheets. I know some people out there like me are as well. But before I get into the spreadsheet at all, I do want to say that the CGC Pop Report is out. I think I'm a little bit late. It's been out a couple weeks now, but I needed to get time to sift through all the data, and I wanted to put out some good information. There's a lot of videos out there kind of talking about the Pop Report already, doing the YouTube thing, hitting the news while it's hot. I really love what they did. It's really cool how they visually pleasing, easy to navigate, very intuitive. I won't get too much into that. I just wanted to show my sources, where this data is coming from, straight from CGC themselves, also straight from PSA themselves. Here's their Pop Report, TCG cards. I might do a video later on breaking down the ease of navigation, what I like about each one versus the other, but that's not what this video is. Big shout out to PokeMetrics. Pichu fan on Instagram. He has a Patreon actually, if you want to support him. What he does here is compiles data from PSA. CGC is planned for the future. WADA actually expanded their Pop Reports today. I think he's talking about doing water related things, potentially just with Pokemon graded games. But anyways, really cool site that just gathers a lot of data. And I'll mention when we're in the spreadsheet specifically what data came from him, his website, and where. But he was a frequently used resource throughout this this little investigation that I did. So one of my main go-to like sources for data, just way more easy to access and digest than looking at the raw data at the PSA Pop Report itself. I mentioned his Patreon. Before we get into it too, you'll be seeing this on Thursday, the 21st on, let me make sure I have the date right. Sunday, the 24th, 9 p.m. Eastern, I will be doing a deeper dive into the CGC Pop Report, and I'll mention later on in the video some of the things I'll get into, but that'll be done in the Pokenomics Patreon, linked below in the description if you want to check it out there. But anyways, let's get into it. So top left, I guess very top left, we've got the date. I pulled all this data on April 19th, and I'm recording it on April 19th. So top left, we have PSA. We have over here under my camera, we have PSA qualifiers, half grades. I wrote that I omitted them. I'm not a big fan of PSA qualifiers, half grades, all this and that. They're not, I mean, less than 1% of all Pokemon cards have a qualifier. Right here, you can see 0.66% of all PSA graded Pokemon cards have a qualifier and or half grade. I'm not going to rant too much about it, but half grades aren't really valid. They're not really reproducible. They're just omitted for sake of having cleaner, easier to work with data. Anyways, we've got column A is PSA grades 10 on down to 1. We've got column B, the total amount PSA is graded. So to date, PSA has graded 3.55 million Pokemon cards, 1.3 million of which are PSA 10. Column C, you'll see, so for PSA 10, 37.23% of Pokemon cards graded have achieved a 10 grade. 36.47% of PSA graded Pokemon cards have achieved a 9 grade. And on down, you can see column D, I used from like bottom up. I summed. So yeah, 0.17% of Pokemon cards graded PSA 1. So I summed cumulatively climbing the scale. So PSA 5 and under, there's a cumulative 4% of Pokemon cards graded at PSA 1 to 5 essentially. And then by the time you get from 1 to 10, obviously 100% all your cards have been graded in between 1 and 10 after omitting the qualifiers and half grades. Same thing for CGC starting in column E. So we have, they have a lot more fleshed out scale. They have half grades all the way through. Their half grades are, as you'll see, as we get down to the charts below, they're used more normally in kind of two ways, just normal, like the normal way you'd use the word normal, but then like mathematically normal distribution. We'll get into that below. But yeah, they really, you can see 9.5, 15.31% of all Pokemon cards graded at CGC achieved a 9.5 grade. You can see super low numbers, less than 1% for a perfect 10. 10P is just 10 perfect. 10 is pristine. And all the memes, CGC 8.5, it's a very common grade, but it's not the most common grade. One thing that jumps out at us, CGC 9 is the most common grade, the mode, if you will. 36.44% of cards grade CGC 9. Down here in the bottom, you can also see the average grade. If you take what I did was I took the sum product of A4 through A14 and B4 through B14, and then divided that by the total amount of cards graded. And all that does, that's a fancy way to calculate the average grade at PSA. The average Pokemon card graded at PSA in all of its history is 8.83. The average card graded at CGC in all of its history, much shorter history, but you do see 3.5 million cards graded at PSA over a 20-year span, approximately. 1.35 million graded at CGC over about a year and a half. Very impressive, their capacity. I guess I can address quickly too. Some of the questions that I'm looking to answer in this video with this spreadsheet are, what are their relative capacities roughly? You can see there what they've done over the time frame they've been grading, what the grade distribution is. We're getting into that right now. And then comparing one scale to the other. We'll get to that at the very end. Looking at one specific card, I did mention in previous podcasts, we've been talking about the CGC Pop Report being on the horizon for like a year now. And I did mention in the past how I was going to investigate it when it came. And I did follow through with doing that. So continuing on, CGC, the average grade is an 8.48. You can see again the same cumulative distribution. I actually plot that down as we go further, but there's all the raw data. I wanted to start out with, I guess, the driest portion of it, the raw data. Now we'll get into the pretty charts and talk about what some of it means. So just another way to look at the same data up here is a percentile breakdown. So what this table does is it takes the same data above, using like the cumulative amount. You can see where if I want a PSA Pokemon card that's better than 99% of other PSA Pokemon cards, that would mean that, yeah, it's literally, if you, in a linear scale, if you just sorted every card from 1 to 10 all in a row, if you picked out the top 1 percentile, that would be at PSA, that would be a PSA 10. At CGC, similarly, it would be a CGC 10. So if you want to be better than 99% of the rest, go with the 10 at either company. Where it starts to get interesting is as we go down the scale. So PSA and CGC, at CGC, there's a cut, there's a break right here. So at the 95th percentile, if you want to be better than 95% of Pokemon cards out there, you need to get a CGC 9.5. PSA, it's still a PSA 10. So we find that if you want to be in the top 1 percentile of PSA, you go with a 10, but then we see that you're also lumped in with the top 5 percentile. So there's no way to separate the 5% from the 1%. And as we go down, you actually see same goes for the 90th percentile and 75th percentile. So if you want to buy a PSA card to really stand out as the best of the best, the top of the top, this is generally speaking. This isn't talking about super low pop, pre-release Clefable, Venusaur, Black Star promo number 13, first edition base Charizard. This is just in general, all Pokemon cards. So there's really not enough resolution on the PSA scale to deem a difference between a top 25th, a top 25 percentile or the 75th percentile card versus a 99th percentile card, the top 1%. Whereas CGC gives you that resolution. Top 99th percentile, top 1% is a CGC 10. 95th percentile is a 9.5. 95th and 90th percentile, there's no way to distinguish between the two. The 9.5 encompasses both of those percentiles. So yeah, you have that there. What these two plots are below, they're basically just showing the same thing. you can kind of see the normal distribution I was talking about with CGC, but this is by grade, what percent of cards. The blue line is like per grade. So from above, CGC 9s were 36% of all CGC cards graded. And you see that data point right here. And then the red line is the cumulative. So the red line is like column H and column D. So yeah, that's just another way to look at the same percentile data. Once you get down to the 75th percentile at CGC, if you want to top one out of my cards better than 3 out of 4 cards, that's a CGC 9. And that also is encompassed by like the median. We talked about the mean or the average up here. The average at PSA is an 8.83. The average at CGC is an 8.48. The 50th percentile or the median is a 9 at both companies. So if you, again, have all the cards spread out in order of grade in a line, and you pick out the very middle one, it's a PSA 9, it's a CGC 9. The median card is the same. Same goes for the 25th and 10th percentiles, as well as 5th percentiles, interestingly. And then the 1st percentile, if you want a card, I want a card that is worse than 99 out of 100 cards. At PSA, that would be a 4. At CGC, that would be a 4.5. Getting that low in the scale, some people collect those niche type of things, really collecting every grade, whatever it may be. But generally speaking, the higher end of the scale is where most people play, 7 to 10 at least, we'll say. So yeah, that's the percentile breakdown. And then that's just, it's shown another way in a chart. One last way to show it, because there's just so many ways. Some people like the raw data, probably. Some people are more visual learners and want to see it in pretty colors, and same thing, same data in a pie chart. PSA 10 is blue. You can see CGC 10, tiny there, that little red one. And then it goes, so it starts in the top middle, like the 12 o'clock on the pie chart. And then clockwise, the grades go down. So as you can see with CGC, there's a million grades down there, but 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, all on down. 10, 9.59, 8.5 on down. Just another way to look at it. What I talked about earlier, where I said the first thing when I see the CGC pop report, I want to look at a modern Pokemon card. I want to look at not just any modern Pokemon card. Oh, I can't believe I don't have one here. I don't think I have one in front of me, which is crazy. But everyone knows it. Everyone loves it. I think everyone's got 1 or 20 of them in their collection. Sword Shield 50, Champions Path Elite Trainer Box, Charizard. So yeah, I looked at that specifically. One thing I didn't mention above, I mentioned some of my goals for what I wanted to look into, what questions I wanted to answer with this data. There's another thing that you need to be careful. What this data is and what this data isn't. Numbers don't lie, but they can be used to confirm certain biases, or they can be used to tell certain stories that you want them to tell, not necessarily that being the case. What I mean by that is we need to separate looking at all the cards submitted to PSA over 25 years, looking at all the cards submitted to CGC over 1.5 years. A natural question that comes up is, are people sending the same cards to each? The answer is likely not. I have different strategies. I'm not even using CGC much anymore. In the future, I might again, who knows? But people might send certain more valuable cards to PSA. People might be more likely to send more mint cards to PSA or maybe to CGC. That's all speculation. That's all subjective. What I want to do is I want to stick with as objective of data as possible. All this above is just objective data. I'm not trying to tell a story with it yet. I'm just giving you the raw data. Now, as we get down here, I want to try to seek to answer, what does a grade at one company, how does it relate to another? If you use the simple averages I meant above, I showed above, you could try to say, well, CGC grades on average 0.45 harder, or sorry, 0.35 harder. Check my math. Yeah, we don't have any digits there. 0.35, I did it right. So CGC grades on average 0.35 harder. They're a harder grading company. Add 0.35 to every CGC grade, and that's going to give you your PSA grade. Doesn't really work like that because PSA doesn't have that granular of numbers, and that's the wrong way to go about it. To separate all the bias, I chose Sword Shield 50 because, in my opinion, that is one of the most, well, not even in my opinion, I think that is the most single graded card at each company. So it gives us a huge data pool. If we look at something like base unlimited Charizard, the issue with that is it's 25 years old. You're seeing some cards that were put into people's pockets and then submitted, some cards that lived in binders for 20 years and then submitted, some cards pack fresh from a box break and then submitted. With Sword Shield 50, 99.9% of them were literally taken out of the Champions Path Elite Trainer box, taken out of the cellophane, put into a penny sleeve, put into a card saver, and sent. I sent 300 to 400 total between the two companies, if not more. I sent at least 100 to CGC and at least 200 to PSA. And given how many I had, I did not discriminate between the two. I didn't say, I'm going to spend 2 hours pre-grading all these and I'm going to send my best to CGC to try to get the perfect, or I'm going to send my best to PSA because they're better and they're worth more. I literally had 300 to 500 of these sealed. I split them down the middle. You go to CGC, you go to PSA. And I think that's a common thing, given the fact that they're very modern, pack fresh. I think that's the most like objective way to separate the two grading scales. And here's the data. So PSA on average grades them a 9.43. CGC on average grades them an 8.93. So we actually see a little bit more of a discrepancy than above. We see a 0.5, 0.5, half a grade discrepancy. And going back to our percentile thing, if you want to have a 90th percentile, if you want to be better than 90% of the cards out there, top 10% card. Okay, I mixed these up. Sorry about that. Let me fix this here quick. So at PSA, that's going to be a 10. Similarly, if you want a median card, if you want to be better than 50% of the cards graded, it's also a 10. Not enough granularity there because so more than half of Sword Shield 50s at PSA attained a 10. And then if you want to be a top 10 percentile, so 90% of Sword Shield 50s at PSA achieved a 9 or higher. And then at CGC, that works out to 90th percentile, top 10% is a CGC 9.5. Median card, 50th percentile card of Sword Shield 50 at CGC is a CGC 9. And then a 10 percentile card where 90% of them are like better than that is an 8.5. So you see more of a normal distribution, as I mentioned, whereas PSA is really, really top heavy. So again, objective data. This is the real data. I went to PSA's pop report. I went to CGC's pop report. I went to PokeMetrics. I pulled these numbers. They don't lie. Someone could try to lie with this data by saying, okay, a CGC 9 equals a PSA 10 every time. CGC 9 equals a 10, a CGC 9.5 equals a 10. You can take any random CGC card that's in a 9 and cross it to a 10 guaranteed. That's not what this is by any means. You got to go on a card by card basis, but generally speaking, this starts to tell a little bit of a story. In Patreon on Sunday, I'm going to go even deeper. This was one card. I'm going to look at 10 cards, 20 cards, 30 cards maybe. And I'm going to try to attack it in a few different angles. I don't even have Sunday finished. I got to this point and then I want to record for Thursday, but this is going to be about a 20, 25-minute video like my normal ones are by the time it's done probably. And YouTube just doesn't afford itself well to go as deep as I want to go with this. I will do follow-up videos down the line. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you want to see more of this. Like, subscribe if you want to see more of this. Let me know in the comments below if there are any other questions you have that you want answered. One that I intend to try to answer. I don't know if the data will allow me to, but I'm going to try to. And this will take time. Part of the reason this is going to be a continuing series on my YouTube channel and then diving a little deeper this Sunday on Patreon. We have a snapshot in time for CGC. We have 2 weeks worth of like new data after the original snapshot. At PSA, we've had a dynamic for the past over a year PokeMetrics has been compiling data. With CGC, it'll be very interesting to see 6 months from now, a year from now, if or how these distributions change. Because one thing that a lot of people are saying, CGC is grading easier now. The data will show us that. If in 1 year, if they grade another 1 million Pokemon cards and we've got a 2.4 million sample size and these numbers shift drastically, if this goes from 0.12% to 2% and this goes from 1% to 10%, then we know they've made a drastic change. We need to wait for that to come. But yeah, that's one of the things I want to attack down the line. Has CGC gotten to where they're grading easier? Same thing for PSA, looking at it 1 year, 2 years, 5 years down the line. Are there ever changes to these numbers, big changes to these numbers? 37% for PSA 10s, 36% for PSA 9s. And then another thing that I really am keen on looking into, there's a lot of information out there for like pop control, especially with Charizards, base unlimited Charizard, evolutions Charizard. Does PSA do it? Does CGC do it? If we look at the data properly, I think that we might be able to uncover whether or not one or both companies do that to some extent. I'm really interested to see the data. If there's anything else you want me to try to seek to answer, I can't promise anything. I can't guarantee anything, but I will do my best. Let me know in the comments below what you want me to look into. I think that's pretty much it. Very interesting timing. I know I was late with the whole CGC Pop Report investigation thing, but as I said, I just didn't really have the time, and I wanted to give it the proper amount of time to show this. Hopefully this was useful and interesting, but more on topic now that we're 20 minutes in, more like relevant with the times. There was that live stream recently, Pokemon Knowledge, Basic Trainer, and Jake, my partner, Pokenomics, Patreon, about paywalls. Are they bad for the hobby? I am in PokeMetrics Patreon. I use his data. This is here for everybody. If you want to pour through this, go ahead. The data's all there. It's free. Dive into it. Same thing with PSA. It's not fun. It's not super fun to dive through the PSA Pop Report. James over at PokeMetrics, he knows how to like scrape things. He knows how to do a lot of computer type things that I don't know how to do. Me putting this together, huge from him here. I couldn't have even done this. It would have taken me 10 hours to manually do this, probably, the grade breakdown. That I got that from him. Same thing for this. To go through every PSA page and try to do that, more than 10 hours. It'd be an unreasonable amount of time. And his PokeMetrics is free, but I support it through his Patreon. It's a paywall. It's not even necessarily a paywall. I'm just paying because I utilize the service. I find tons of value. I feel like I should give back. You don't have to by any means, but I'm going to link it below if you want to. And then same goes for the Pokenomics Patreon. The argument could be made, and some people try to make it, if Dan's going to spend all his time doing this, he shouldn't show some of it to YouTube and then show more of it to Patreon. I don't fully agree. It took me most of my day to get here. I did some other things. I took some calls. I did some emails, but it took me somewhere between 4 and 6 hours maybe to get as far as I am. And I'm going to go further before Patreon. That's a lot of time to put into something with like not a whole lot coming back out of it. I want to do it for myself anyways. I'm sharing some amount of it here, and then to get the really deeper dive and to get the back and forth too. Like right now, I'm just talking to you. I'm talking at you. You're listening to me. I really like in our Zoom calls, I'm going to give a presentation that's going to kind of start with this and then go a little deeper. And then people can hit me with questions live. They can hit me back. We can go back and forth, and we can talk about it as a group, what we think it all means. Get into a little bit of that subjectivity. But yeah, that's my take on paywalls. I think they're fine. I think if people want to chart, the market will decide. If no one deems our Patreon worthy of $10 a month, they'll stop paying it. They'll leave. It'll be gone. We'll stop doing it if no one wants it. I'd be less likely to devote the amount of time into these deep dives if it weren't for Patreon, because tiny YouTube channel, I'm going to get a few hundred views, maybe 1,000 views if it gets picked up, maybe a few thousand if I'm lucky, one of my best videos ever. And the amount of ad revenue that comes from that is extremely nothing. If you want to support, I make a lot more through the eBay affiliate link than my YouTube ad revenue by like multiples. So if you want to support the eBay affiliate links there too, but the Patreon is just a more sustainable, I think, way to pay a creator, pay someone for hopefully the value they bring to you. So yeah, there's my little conversation on the hot topic of the day, paywall, Patreons, and all that. I guess let me know in the comments below too what you think on that. That's everything. If you're in Patreon, if you decide to join, I'll hopefully catch you Sunday live in Zoom. If not, Nick and I, we're recording tomorrow night, the next PokeFlips podcast. So the same day you see this, the newest PokeFlips podcast will be up. I answer questions for free over there too. Q&A every other week with Nick on PokeFlips. So my DMs are open on Instagram. My email's there. I answer a lot of questions. So feel free to hit me with questions in the comments, Instagram, PokeFlips podcast, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm still a pretty small channel, so I can do that. Part of the whole paywall thing is like you can offer more, not so much me at this point yet, but if and when I grow the channel to where I literally can't answer all the message, it's almost like a filter by necessity to be able to control the flow of questions and things like that. But anyways, gone on long enough. Appreciate everyone watching as always. I will catch you all later.